Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel and click that notifications button and get a new notification whenever a new video is uploaded. Let's start with Josh Warrington and talking about him. I'm going to do a second video discussing Kiko Martinez's fight against Zelfa Barrett and what I believe Anthony Yarde could learn from Kiko Martinez. That'll be in a separate video. This first video of the night, it will be to do with Josh Warrington, his spectacular really defeat at the hands of Mauricio Lara. Look, first and foremost, I will say this. I feel gutted for Josh. He seems like a really good kid, good family man. He's remained humble throughout his career. Even when he achieved things that people didn't think he was capable of achieving, he remained humble. And, you know, I've got a lot of respect for someone like that. However, we have to be honest with our analysis. And I'm going to be very critical of Josh and the tactics and also, you know, the choice of opponent, to be honest with you, because stylistically, I feel like he's all wrong for Josh Warrington. If I was on the team somehow and they said, what do you think about this guy as a warm-up opponent or a tune-up fight, I would have said, are you mad? No way. And we'll get to that and we'll discuss that. But also from a British boxing perspective, it's a real shame because, you know, the Leeds United fans, when we're allowed fans into the stadiums, they bring fantastic atmosphere. There's a lot of enjoyment and buzz around Josh Warrington fights. And, you know, he was the number one guy in the division. So it was a great thing to have a fighter like that in the UK. So I do hope he can re-find his feet again. But I will say this, Mauricio Lara is also a class act. You can't take anything away from the kid. He conducted himself with decorum. At the end of the fight, he pointed to Josh, showing the paramedics, please come in and treat him immediately. He didn't celebrate until Josh was up. So, you know, another class act in Mauricio Lara. So when it comes to this fight, let's talk about it. Let's analyze it because, like I said, stylistically, it was all wrong for Josh. We'll start off with Josh Warrington. When it comes to Josh's strengths, imagine boxers are superheroes, okay? And they've all got a superpower, a special power. Josh Warrington's is the frenetic tempo that he's able to bring. Now, in fairness to Josh, he didn't seem as effervescent, shall we say, as he usually does. Now, there could be a variety of reasons for that. Maybe he struggled to make the weight, as many have suggested. Maybe he's aging, 30 years old, you know, it comes to a point where to bring that level of intensity, maybe he's just slowing down. Or alternatively, one thing that not a lot of people are talking about, he got hit with a significant uppercut in round one. Now, he would have heard rumours about Lara. Manuel Navarrete, who's a top dog himself, has said that Lara is one of the hardest puncher he's faced in sparring. Now, if he started to hear these rumours and he thought, wow, man, I've taken this as a bit of a warm-up fight, a tune-up fight. He gave up an IBF belt. And he's sitting there and he's thinking, you know, this is supposed to be just a keep busy fight. And they're talking about this guy like he's a monster. Is there any truth to it? The commentators alluded to that. They'd been thinking about that. Then he gets into the ring and he gets caught with a big shot, which again, because it didn't rock him, he took a step back though. It didn't rock him and the commentators sort of didn't pick up on it. I think he really felt that. So then did he think, wow, man, this reinforces what Navarrete said. I've never been in with a puncher like this before. Now what? And it sets a panic to the point where he thinks, I don't want to jump in anymore. Because the one problem he has, Josh, is that he's all about that intensity that he brings, that high level tempo. He's not a boxer puncher. He's not going to get on the back foot and time him and draw shots and make him fall short and counter and stuff like that. That's not who Josh Warrington is. So from that very first round, he might have been put off from going for his own game because he's just not part of who he is. Now, let's talk about Josh stylistically. I know a couple of you like the analogies I come up with. Well, I'm about to give you another one. I want you to imagine a boxer puncher. What is a boxer puncher? What is Lee Selby? Lee Selby's a straight up boxer, but what is Selby? What is Carl Frampton in terms of machinery? They're super bikes, right? They're a GSXR, they're a Kawasaki Ninja. They're the sort of bikes that you see, they look beautiful. They're speeding along that highway, on that Oceanside highway. You see the orange sky, the sun setting. Machine looks sexy, just zooming down that road. You're on that bike with your leathers, your slick back hair, your sunshades. You're looking the part. You're wearing your Fahrenheit aftershave, leaving a cloud behind you. You know what I'm talking about, like an 80s movie based in Miami or something. That's what a boxer puncher is. Mauricio Lara is not a boxer puncher. Mauricio Lara is a Mack truck. There's no frills about him. There's nothing beautiful to behold. There's no slickness. There's no pizzazz. But it keeps on going and going and going. And it's big and it's powerful and it's durable. Now, on that highway with that orange sky, that sunset, that superbike looks sexy. That Mack truck's an eyesore. But as you get to the end of that ocean side highway and it starts to take an upwards turn through the mountains, all of a sudden you see this storm approaching. And it's quite a furious storm. Well, that storm is Josh Warrington. And that rain's beating down and that gust of wind is coming at you strong. Well, all of a sudden, that superbike isn't as comfortable on the edge of the highway looking down off a cliff with this storm circulating. Whereas that Mack truck, yeah, okay, you're going to sit there, you're going to squint your eyes, you're going to put your windscreen wipers on, but that Mack truck keeps going. Whereas the motorbike, all of a sudden, is thinking, things aren't looking so sexy anymore. One gust of wind, I'm off. I'm off the edge. You start rolling, shaking, that bike's moving around. Josh Warrington, the Storm, has more success. Because what he does, he offsets your work. A boxer puncher, he wants to time you. He wants to engage in great distance control. He wants to slip your one shot, counter you with one. He slips your one shot, he goes to counter you with one, another 3 or 4 shots come, he feels like he's being mugged by a bunch of guys. He's not allowed to do his clean work. So now you're overwhelming him. Whereas when you're up against a Mauricio Lara, that same tactic doesn't work. That Storm isn't intimidating that Mack truck. So what Josh Warrington was doing essentially was jumping in the pocket, staying at mid-range, which we'll talk about this when we get a little bit more technical, staying at mid-range and letting go of frenetic combinations. Now, if Josh Warrington's going to throw 4 punches, Mauricio Lara is saying, that's cool. You land your 4, Mr. Feather-Fisted Josh. This is how he sees it. I'm going to land just 2. You can land twice what I land. But the ones I'm going to land, I'm bringing that fist down from the canvas and I'm taking your head off. I'm loading up with everything I got. And if you're going to be an immobile target sitting in front of me and you're going to land 4 on me and I'm going to land 2 on you, I'll take my chances with that, Josh. Now, one of the problems with Josh's approach, therefore, is that by staying in that centre line and letting go of his hands, Lara, who is quite crude, not long ago I made a video where I was talking about the difference between styles and levels, and I was saying that styles make fights, and sometimes they can be more important than levels. I believe the two are mutually exclusive from each other, and that a 7 out of 10 could beat an 8 out of 10, a 6 out of 10 could beat an 8 out of 10 if he's all wrong for him. And the 8 out of 10 is perhaps not at his best or doesn't adapt or whatever. Well, this was a case in point. Because Mauricio Lara doesn't have the talent that Josh Warrington has. Not that Josh Warrington's an elite level boxer, but Lara's quite crude. When he throws those hooks, he did a lot of damage with the left hooks. They were landing left hooks on each other. When he's throwing that hooks generally, he's throwing a hook and he's really loading up on it. And not only is he loading up on the hook, so there's a telegraph on it, when he misses that hook, his entire body is turning around. So he won't end. So let's say this microphone head, which you can barely see, is the opponent's head, the line of his head. You want to punch through the target, but he's not just coming through to here. He's moving all the way around and turning his whole body. Now, one of the negatives of being in this position is that what can I possibly throw at you? My left hand's out of bounds if I miss. The only thing I can possibly throw is another right hook, or maybe a right straight right hand, depending on how much I've turned. What I'm not going to do is throw a sneaky little uppercut or anything like that. He's crude. You know what's coming. So, what you want to do, if you're Josh Warrington, is exactly what he didn't do. And we'll get to that in a second. Instead, what Josh did was stay in the centre. Lara would miss perhaps and think, you know what, I'm just going to load up on another big shot. Yeah, I've missed. He's going to land another couple, but I know he's going to be there. He's in my centre line. I've missed. All right. I've overcommitted. Well, now I'm going to load up again. This time I'll catch him as he catches me. So Lara throws one. He missed. Josh landed. Lara throws again. Josh throws again. They hit each other. Josh landed 2. Lara landed 1. Twice as many shots for Warrington. Does it matter when Lara's throwing with the mean intentions that he's throwing? He was always going to get broken down like that. Now, at the end of the fourth round, for me, that fight should have been stopped. The reason it wasn't stopped is probably because they thought, you know what, he's the champion, Lara's the huge underdog, they're still underrating this guy. Let's give him another moment, let's see if Josh picks it up, and he'll probably edge the next round. So that kept the fight going, thinking, okay, me personally, if I would have stopped it in the fourth. If I had let him go on to the fifth, him winning the fifth, you might have thought, you know what, let's give him a moment. Let's give him a moment because he's finding his feet. The minute things started to look like in the sixth, like he wasn't great, he should have been pulled out. He should not have gone 9 rounds. That was horrific damage that he accrued. And he's going to take a long time now to get over this sort of damage. Okay, it was horrific damage that he took on. He's got a fractured jaw. He's got, I don't know what he did to his shoulder. He injured his shoulder. He was in serious peril. And it's going to take a long time for him to even get back physically, let alone mentally. Okay, this is a bitter blow for Josh Warrington. But let's talk tactically and technically. If he does take the rematch, which I'm not so sure he should, I think he should go away, work on a few things, learn a few things. Learn how not to become a storm. Learn how to be a hurricane. So that whether it's a Mack truck on that cliff edge or whether it's a motorbike, it doesn't make a difference. You're going to whip up debris. You're going to do whatever you would need to do to throw that thing off. And let's talk about how he could do that. First and foremost, this thing of staying in the center line and exchanging punch for punch, blow for blow with a guy like Lara, forget it. He's too big, he's too durable, he hits too hard. Tailor-made for him. That's what he wants. Volume. Let's exchange volume. But I don't believe Josh Warrington, who tweeted post-fight, I should have stayed on the back foot and boxed. I don't believe he can do that for 12 rounds. I don't think he's skilled enough to do that against a guy like Lara. I think eventually he'd get caught. So he still has to do what he does best, but he has to adapt it. And let's talk about how he can do that, therefore. There's 2 fighters I think he needs to learn from. One of them is Ricky Hatton. And Ricky, obviously in the UK, likes to work with fighters. Maybe he should contact Ricky, go and do a couple of sessions with him. See if he likes working with Ricky Hatton, see if he can pick up a few things. You see, what Ricky Hatton was brilliant at doing is not just working incessantly up close. He would fall into you and take that range away from you and tie up your arms. And while he'd land and then fall in, tie you up, he'll have one arm free and learn to just rip that body up close, wrestle you. Now, someone like Lara, who might be crude and wants to load up big, if he's not allowed to and it becomes a short fight where you're on the inside and you're throwing short shots, and every time Lara tries to open up, we know how Ricky used to pivot off that lead foot, create a new angle, just turn out, open up the center line, bang into the ribs, through the solar plexus, lean on him again, turn him, move him, his shoulder's there, push his shoulder so he comes forward, move him around, mess up his balance on the inside so he can't load up. Well, all of a sudden, you might be taking Lara into territory he doesn't want to go. Now, if Lara is physically too strong for Josh Warrington, that might not work for too long. Warrington might be having to put in an awful lot just to tie him up. Additionally, it takes a long time to master these sorts of things. So if you're trying to do this, and even on a couple of, you might be successful at it for 2 minutes of the round, 65% of the time, that last minute of the round, say, if he's freeing his arm or a total of 1 minute, he's finding moments to load up and he's landing big shots when you're up close, you could still be in trouble. So that might not even be enough. But this is a method he's going to have to learn. If you can continue to get him turning and resetting as you're pivoting out, you're going to cause him problems. Because if he then does overcommit with these hooks and he's missing, and he's throwing these over-the-top wild hands that are wild and he's missing and he's falling off balance, and you're pivoting around him, like I said before, if I throw that hook and I'm here, the only punch I can come with is this right hand. If you're there and you've caught me, and rather than staying in the center line, you've moved further out, well, now what? Now the only shot I can catch you with is to turn my entire body and throw a shot this way. Not only does that take a long time, you might have 2 shots before I do that. You might land 2 shots, and as I turn, you've then come back around this way. All of a sudden, that guided missile is misguided, and it's gone, and you're constantly turning me, resetting me. My feet are going to start to get square on, because his feet get square on. He is crude, but it's hard to master that. The other fighter he needs to look at is James Toney. If you want to be more realistic and look at a British fighter, look at Toney Bellew. I'm sure Bellew could help him with this too. But one thing that James Toney was brilliant at is something that I like to call a bump, so to speak. It's to bump you. Use your shoulder, your forearm, push, bump, fall in with that shoulder. Connect with that shoulder as the guy's off balance, just before you do your work. Because what would happen, again, imagine you've landed a shot. Lara loads up. Maybe he misses. Maybe he lands. Maybe you block it. When he's then off balance, rather than staying at that mid-range to then release your own shots, fall into him and bump him. Hit him with your shoulder. And if he's turned too much, say, barge him shoulder to shoulder. If you're on the inside and you can get your shoulder into his center line, come low, rise up, hit him into the solar plexus with your shoulder. Okay, change your height dynamic. Come low, move in with that shoulder, bump him, and as he's falling back, catch him with a shot. In other words, because he's going to be overcommitting and turning a lot, there's a lot of movement there as he overloads, and he squares his feet and he's off balance, maximize that lack of balance. Ensure that he can't reset to load up with that second shot. By keeping him off balance, and there's constant forward momentum, which you can also move laterally and forward, but you're hitting him, you're moving him, you're twisting him, you're bumping him, you're taking away his balance. James Toney was a master at this. You're ruining his construct, his positioning. And if Josh can do that and constantly move him and marry that with that frenetic tempo, who knows how Lara's going to cope? But what you cannot do is sit in the pocket, in the middle, and say, okay, my turn to throw punches when you know that guy's going to punch with you. He's not going to let you finish your shots. He's not that sort of guy that covers up like a Golovkin. Golovkin will cover up and then want to follow you out as you exit. He can't sit there and think, you know what, I'm going to do my work and then pivot out and get out and stay away. Jump in, do my work, pivot out, get out. Because he's punching with you, not after you. He's not trying to deflect shots either. He's throwing with you. Yeah, land on me, Josh. I'll land on you. So the key is to stop him throwing. Cut the problem off at the source. To stop him throwing, what you're ultimately saying is stop him loading up to throw those big power shots. So either you fall in, tie him up, learn to work the inside while keeping him tied up, or learn to move his body and manipulate him using your own body to break his positional construct so he can't throw again. The key is not to let him get his shots off. Now, there's another way of beating a guy like Lara, and I want you to think along the lines of Amir Khan. Amir Khan would feint his way in. Sometimes he wouldn't even feint, and that was one of the big problems he had. But he had the capability of feinting to come in if he wanted to hide his entry point. Like I said, I know Khan sometimes would be predictable with that entry point. But if he would feint his way in, he could make a guy fall short, land a flurry of shots, not too many against a guy like Lara, 1 and 2s, 1, 2s, 1, 2, 3 max, then get back out. And as he's falling short and he gets more desperate, he can walk onto shots. You're in, bang, bang, you're out. A raiding style. I don't believe Josh has got that in his locker. Now, he can work on that too. Maybe he does have it in his locker. But for me, when I've seen Josh try to do that sort of thing in the past, it hasn't so much been in and out in a David Hay-esque type way or an Amir Khan type way where, you know, you could really see the amateur pedigree there and the understanding of distance. For me, it looked more like I'm going to jump in, overwhelm a guy, and then stay in that pocket. Or even if I'm going to come out, I'm going to overwhelm him, where he'll throw one shot, I'll throw 3 or 4, then get out, and I'll continue that pattern. You can't do that against a Lara. So for me, those first 2 approaches are the best way if he's going to take a rematch. Let me know what you think, guys. Is there any way back for Josh Warrington? Because it's not just the physical element here, guys. It's the mental element. It's the emotional element. And yeah, there have been some serious physical damage too there. And also, you know what? He's a father of 2 beautiful young girls. Mentally, has he got that thing in him where he's going to think, you know what? I want to take this guy's head off and I'm going to go through hell and back to beat this man? Or is he going to sit there, look at his family when he goes home and his missus is going to say to him, Josh, you've had a great career. You've made a lot of money. I want you to be safe. You're a dad to kids now. I can't risk you getting hurt. You're on the floor having oxygen in that fight. Because if that starts playing in the back of his mind, forget guys like Lara. You either walk away from the sport or you go for much more winnable fights domestically just to make some money, even at world level, winnable fights against non-punchers. Let me know what you think, guys. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. God bless.